Hey everybody, it's Scott Detweiler back with our Tuesday morning for me anyway, live stream. We'll be doing Capture One, Photoshop, and a bunch of other stuff is coming down the pike. And we've got a lot to cover today. I've been gone for a few weeks, apologize for that, but traveling a lot. I'll be here for a few more weeks before I take off again for heading to Houston and maybe Portland. They're still working on that. The travel right now is outrageously expensive. So that's kind of stopping a few different places from having me come in and speak. But I'll be heading to Austin, Texas in a few weeks and doing a bunch of other stuff. So I'll be around. And we're going to do a lot more streaming. I have a new project I'm working on, a new series of projects. I want to talk about that today. And I think that it's going to be pretty interesting because it's kind of diverting from what we normally do here and going a little bit down the rabbit hole. So I think that people will find it kind of unique, refreshing, and I'm going to, obviously, like I do in this channel, we're going to talk about all the steps. I'm not going to like skip stuff. So you'll be able to see it. If it's interesting to you, then you'll love it. Before we get going, though, a huge thank you to Patricia Carter and Mikhail No, for joining the channel as patrons. Really appreciate you guys helping out. By the way, if you do join, I have my Twitter hooked up now so that when you join, there's a nice shout out to you automatically done. So that if you're not on Twitter, by the way, I started using Twitter more often lately. I've been on there since 2009 and been really kind of ignoring it. But now I'm starting to use a lot more. So if you're on there, it's just SE Detweiler, the same as pretty much every other social media I'm on. But you get a chance to see who's joining the channel to support, as well as other work that I've been doing for different clients and so on. So if you have any questions on these things, let me know. And as always, if you are a channel professional, you will actually get the Photoshop files so you can see all the layers and everything else along that lines. So enough about that. But I kind of wanted to, today we're going to talk about this project that I've been working on. And I have one image kind of done, and I wanted to walk you through the process I want on. So it's not going to be an arduously long process, but I do want to talk about it a bit today. The next one, we're going to go into a lot more detail, and there's a few hours of work involved. But I have one image pretty much done, and I wanted to walk through what I did on that. So you can give me feedback, and you let me know if this is something you would like to continue to see, or if you just want me to work at it on my own and not really do it on the channel. I mean, I made this channel kind of to help people understand there's more than one way to kind of approach Photoshop and Capture One and so on. Because there's a lot of channels that are just like, hey, if you want to do this one thing, here you go. I think that's helpful if you know that one thing you want to do. But oftentimes it's a project where we start and we end. And I wanted to do something where it's the whole process in between. So that's why this channel is structured the way that it is. So if you don't know, I actually enter a lot of photo competitions, and this is the districts. So if you're a judge, don't look at this. But these are the images that I have done so far. And I want to talk about the results a bit because I did very well. But I want to talk about where I did fall down and why. So this image here, Damnation, this is a body paint I did in Oklahoma. And this one did very well. It was a 5 and 0, so it went over very well with the judges. Again, the brightest area is in the face here. This is the thing I think that a lot of people fall down on in print competition. And there are no crushed blacks. I mean, there's detail everywhere. There's no true black anywhere in this image. But this one pretty unique, and it did very well, which I was happy about. This one did not do well. This one did not merit. It was a big conversation amongst the judges. I did not hear it. I was actually on the road, so I did not get a chance to listen to the judges talk about it. But they couldn't understand if she was sitting or standing or what was going on, which is kind of lame. But hey, you know, we'll give them a chance to argue about whatever they want to argue about. And I didn't like this glow around this, but I didn't get a chance to fix it. And realistically, this was a filler image for me. I put it in there because I like it, but I knew that it probably wouldn't do very well, and certainly it did not. But who knows? It's one of those things. This one I can't show very large because it is a nude, but this one is one of those that you'll see out and around on my websites and so on. So if you go looking for it, it's pretty easy to find. And the little flower is currently my Facebook header, and I really like this one. Again, has no true black anywhere in it. We just lift that curve a little bit. You've seen me do that 100 times. We'll do it again, I'm sure, today when we talk about this product or the new project. But lifting that black ensures that there's no crushed area on the image. And this is one that I did in Chicago, actually, during a presentation I gave down there. And very simple edit, but again, one of those that judges just loved. And I think that a lot of people get into this kind of this rut where you think something, it can only be fantastic to really kind of do well in a print competition, and that's not true. I just have to have a really good story. So this is one of those. It has a cute little story with the butterfly. Without the butterfly, I don't know if this would have merited. It's just a picture of a pretty young girl, and that's about it. So telling the story is important. Okay, so why are you here? What are we going to do? Well, this image here of Kenzie, I shot quite a few of her when I was down there. And the concept here is that I want to take her and show her as kind of a grown-up Barbie. So I want to have some different limbs come off and have that be a little more fantastic. So to that ends, by the way, I just did a nice portrait of her. I haven't retouched this at all yet, but you can kind of see what she looks like there. So this is the one that I have pretty much completed. I'm going to walk you through that today. I have this one, which we're going to do next. So what we're going to do here, again, I'm thinking this through as I'm going, and I haven't tried it yet. So we'll see how, what reality meets my my expectation. I want to sever her arm somewhere in here, and then use another image from the same set, because I have a bunch of different movements where her arm is dropped to the side, and have like a bunch of cables and stuff connecting it. So it's kind of like a grown-up Barbie if the parts came off, or if there were a way to connect her together. And then the same with this. I was showing the title for this one. I knew what I wanted when I titled it. Was the charging cord is too short. It's just like you have that the cord is just too tight. So I actually put tension on this so that it would be short here. And then I'm going to actually, again, disconnect the arm here. And I have another shot of her where she's rolled her shoulder back. So we're going to kind of sever the arm and then show a bunch of cables and stuff in between. Now, if you're thinking, what are you doing? Right, here we go. This is what I did so far to give you an idea of where we're going with this thing. And my plan is to actually do these live streams. So once I do live stream, I'm going to move them into the member area, but I'm going to probably create a roll up, which will be a much shorter for those people who don't want to be members but still want to watch the process. That'll be like maybe a 15 or 20 minute video versus the couple of hours of each part of me tripping over this thing. But what I did is I went through and I photographed her in different poses. So we started here. This is the one you saw already. And then I did this one where she's standing up, and I lift this shoe here so that we knew where the foot was. So it wasn't so much that I needed the shoe to be there later. I just needed the shoe to be there so I knew where her foot was going to be. And then I did another photo of her wearing a different shoe, again, standing a little bit farther over. And I probably should have left that shoe there as well, only because then the reflections in the shoe would be more accurate. But as it is, it's fine. Remember, if you ever try doing this kind of thing, a couple things to keep in mind is you have to make sure you lock your white balance, because you can't have the white balance shifting between images, as that's just going to get awkward. And you also have to make sure you don't change your focus point. So if you're a back button focus user, this is no problem. You just don't have to worry about it. But if you are a front button focus person, you're going to have to switch to manual. Otherwise, your camera's probably going to refocus on something because obviously we want her face to be in focus and nothing else. Everything else is getting blurry. So if you try to do this thing, I would highly impress upon you, if you're not a back button focus user, almost all cameras have that button on the back that says EL or EFL on it. That's your back button focus. And when I push on my shutter button on the camera, it does not refocus the image. It just takes the picture. That opens up a lot of capability, and I'm not going to go into that today. But if you're not a back button focus person, I would say that it will open up a lot of great doors for you to learn to do it that way. I have a Sony, and one button has its eye focus, and the other one is just a simple back button, but the shutter only does the shutter. And then the last one here, I had to lay her in the ground and kind of stretch her leg out. My idea here is that I'm going to take and borrow all these different legs and combine them with this first image. And that's what I did. So up here, we did need a new thing. So let's just turn these on here. So let's go back to this image here. And what I need to do was kind of work through the different pieces. So here, I only need the top part of the leg. So all I did was mask off. So this image here, all we have is this part of the image here, and this, whatever this is over here. That's not very handy. This piece of whatever that is on the floor. So that's that entire frame there. So on top of it, you just see this here. So you'll see that in compositing, this is a very common technique, but because my camera was on a tripod, I didn't change the focus point. And again, white balance is the same. This looks like it belongs there because it was right there. And I did the same thing with the photo of her standing. I just, again, masked out. Here's the mask. Really lovely mask. I don't know why that is so weird. By the way, if you hit your backslash key above the enter key, you can see the mask as it's displayed live. This is really handy for finding, again, weird masks. I think part of my process here was that I want to make sure that the floor had a nice transition with it. This here, I want to make sure I get the shadow from the shoe. So I'm not really worried so much about this back here. Hey, Ron Barbosa. Thanks for the support, sir. And so this here, again, same thing. It's just a separate layer with just parts of this image. You can see some of the couches on there. I did that because cutting this out and making the transition look good between the couch and the leg is going to be tough because there's a depth of field here. So it's easier to just kind of fake the couch in. No one's going to notice that, but they'd certainly notice if the leg looked like it were cut out, like it was too sharp. So this makes it a lot easier there. And then the last one here is her laying on the ground. And this is the same concept. I just took and cut her out. So this is the only part of that image that survives. You can see, again, there's some weirdness here with parts of that mask. But again, I'm trying to make it look so that it's not obvious where the floor starts and stops because there was a change in shadow. I mean, yes, she's here, but she's also not here any longer. So I've got to make sure that everything plays nicely. Now, I don't care about this because we're going to replace it. What we need to do is show, and this is kind of the fun part of this, is figure out how does her leg connect to this new bottom foot thing. So that was my next thing. This is just the shoes. Sorry, I turned the background on. This just allows me to kind of mask everything below this against the plate. This is called a plate, by the way. So whenever you're working on creating a big composition, it is a really good idea for you to shoot the scene without anyone in it first, because you never know when you're going to need something and you have to cut something out and then you got to fake it. This plate is very helpful. In this case, I really didn't use it much, but it's there and it's all good. So if I take that off, you can see where I use the plate is to remove the bottom part here, but I could have easily gotten that from one of these other images as well. So if this starts to get pretty big, it's only 2.3 gig now, but if it starts to get too big, then I'll be able to actually sacrifice this and go do that. Oh, my phone is ringing. That's nice. All right. So what I want to do then is I got to kind of show that her legs come off. Okay. How are we going to do that? Well, I had all these grand plans. By the way, I haven't even retouched her skin yet. I mean, that's how early on we are in this process. Because I wanted to do the hard part first. Risk-driven project management, that's called. I want to do the hard part first. And I did the leg joint. Now, the leg joint is very simple. And I've done this on a few other images in the past. And it's pretty easy. All you do is make a line, and then you're just going to make this a selection. So basically, we have a selection. That means that anything that is kind of painted on this side here will only, it kind of looks like a piece of cardboard if you're spray painting across it. So you can kind of see this is how I did this. And this is no different. On one side of the line, I have drawn with a little bit of black, and the other side I drew with a little bit of white. Again, very, very lightly. At only 30% opacity here is at 100%. Get the idea. So I just want to hint that there's something there, but I don't want to be too aggressive or too openly obvious. And then I started to get fancy. I put a box in here because I want to show kind of what's the product that she would use. So I'm going to replace this with a leg, picture of a leg, and probably do a Louboutin, which is a red bottom French shoe, very expensive. And I have quite a few clients that come in with those on. So I was like, oh, this is a fun way to kind of do that. So this is just a sketch by my friend Meredith that I just threw on the box to kind of show where it sits in the room. Now, if you're wondering how I did this, I used Blender. And that's one of the things I think that we're going to kind of take the channel to do more of is Blender. And this is a 3D application. It is free. So it's just Blender, like, you know, a blender.org. And I use this quite a bit, but I haven't really done anything on this channel. So what I did here is I have, let's direct this out a bit here. I have the scene, and it's got the room. This is the edge of the couch. This is the floor, and this is just the box. This big area here is the window. So it will cast the same light as it would as if she were in that space. So this box here, the camera angle is all set up so that if I go back to Blender and I just hit 0 on my numpad, you can see kind of how I put a reference in there so I can kind of tell what it is I'm looking at. And that was it. It was very simple. It didn't take me very long. It probably took me 10 minutes to do this. Because again, I only have to worry about the texture in the box. These other things are what they call shadow catchers. All they do is catch the shadow. which you just throw in on Photoshop. So in Photoshop here, the shadow actually comes with the box, which is pretty sweet. And then I have some other shadows here for this part of the leg. Because she was laying on the floor, obviously I don't get to see the shadow because it was covered by her leg. So what I did here is I just kind of drew another shadow in there so we'd have something. And then here I started to add what I call the male parts. These are the parts of how the leg will connect. And this is the fun part. This is the part where you get to figure out how does the leg actually connect. So I kind of whipped this up, and I'll tell you one of the biggest mistakes I think people make when they do 3D stuff is they put way too much time and effort into detail that you don't need. And I did that in this case because there's going to be others in this series, and I'm not really sure if I'm going to have close-ups of this or not. So I went ahead and did the detail, but I would tell you that normally you would not go into the level of detail that I did. And I'm going to show you that in a second so you understand what I mean by be careful, because you could take a lot of time and effort on like fingerprints on something that is just small on a table that's tiny in the scene and no one would ever notice it. And it does not really help with realism because it's not noticeable. But in this case, I want to show that there was some sort of mechanical attachment here. It's just a couple different parts like pins maybe that go up into the leg and then a way for them to attach. So I used like kind of a mounting situation. It's called a Bowen's mount. We use them for our studio lighting. Kind of the same thing. And then I wanted like a charging LED that shows that it's not quite charged. Originally, I was thinking I was going to have a cord running across there that would show that her leg was charging, because I think that helped with the storytelling. But I think that it would be visually distracting and judges would get on it for it. So I just got rid of that. Now, obviously, this leg here isn't the male part. It's the female part. And that's this part here. So you can kind of see this just covers up the mess that is that horrible mask, because I don't care. This is just going to cover that right up. Now, how I did this again was I did it in Blender, and it didn't take me too long because I know what I wanted. At least I think I did. So I just took this and created this piece here. So I have a male part, this part here, and let's see if I can collect it. Yep. So that's the male part that fits in this thing, and then there's the female part, so that I know that they fit together, and this is how they work. Now I went a little overboard here. These are like LEDs. In fact, let's turn this on so you can actually see what it looks like shaded. So you see there's LEDs there, and that's kind of what I was looking for. This was originally kind of blue to match her outfit, and you can see the scuffing and all kinds of stuff I added on this. Again, way more detail than I'm going to need at this point. But because I think that eventually this piece is going to be much larger in the scene, I wanted to go ahead and put some time and effort into this now, which was not difficult. I use another piece of software called Substance Painter, which is another Adobe product. And again, I did not need to go to this length to do this. And again, I just extended this down so it casts a shadow, but I'm going to be clipping it in Photoshop. So this was pretty simple to make. And I may actually do more Blender on this channel at a very rudimentary level. There are a lot of really good Blender YouTubers out there, but I think they're much more advanced than a lot of photographers that want to dip their toe into this. So I would love to hear what you think of this. Do you want to see more Blender on this channel? Because I think I'm going to show it more. Anyway, so this is kind of what I ended up doing. I ended up being able to blend all that together, and it looks pretty seamless. Remember, there's a depth of field, so you got to make sure that these things are not too sharp. They need to work with the focus. And again, I just used the kind of how blurry the leg was here to make a determination of how that is going to be. That isn't quite on there right yet. But all these pieces are, again, they're just separate layers, so I can do whatever I need to do with them yet. But again, this is going to be judged at this distance. So now it's just a matter of replacing this box with the appropriate brad that I want. I did make some adjustments to little things here just to kind of give it, again, a little bit more realism. But when I'm done, I need to bring that all the way back into Capture One and do all my final color grading and everything along that lines, which I had actually already started. So here's the color graded version of the image. But again, I still haven't even retouched her skin. I just kind of proof of concepting this to kind of understand where it is that I want to go with it and how I want to take it. The other images I have planned, as I said, this one with the arm disconnected here. Again, not really sure if I'm going to show cables. Originally, I wanted to do cables, but I think the whole socket concept was really kind of interesting. So that's kind of where I want to go with that. Again, just having fun with it. I think, yeah. So her hand, or this part is in focus. This may not be the best image. Again, I may fail at this and decide to just pick a different image or do something else. Again, this one I thought was kind of cute, where she's just checking her news, but she's looking more at me than at the phone. I'm having difficulty discerning that. So I may or may not use this. But if anything, it's one of those where you pick a project and you attempt to get it done. Even if you fail, can you get it to 70% of the way there? You know, if you can get it to 70%, give yourself credit for completing it. Even if it's not perfect, it's better done than perfect. I've heard. I'm a perfectionist, so I find that very, very difficult. But I think in photography in general, it's one of those things where learning to accept some fallibility in getting an image done, even if it's a concept that's not quite perfect, because you're learning a new skill, is extremely important. I think too many people get stuck on the idea of it must be perfect in order to move forward. That's just going to lead to situations. I have a whole bunch of other stuff that I have worked on over the course of, geez, I've been gone a few weeks, guys. I really apologize for that. But I have a whole bunch of work that I need to catch up on that I'm going to do my live stream. And we're going to do some live streams at odd times because I'm not always available at Tuesday at 11:30. And I've kind of decided that I like having a regimented time when we meet and you guys can tune in. You know I'm going to be here. But there's also a lot of times when I just decide, hey, I'm going to work on something. And I'm going to stop looking at the view counter to see how many people are joining at the time that I'm chatting. I mean, I do like it when you guys interact with me, which no one's typing today, but hey, that's okay. It's like I'm just standing here talking to myself. That's fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and record those and throw them up on the channel live as I'm doing them, and then throw them in the member area. I think that that's going to help kind of, I don't know, make it feel like I'm doing more for my subscribers, because when I've been gone on Tuesdays, I haven't been doing live streams, and this Blender stuff is becoming a much more, a bigger part of my life. I've been doing a lot more client work that involves a lot more 3D items thrown into photography, proof of concepts. We've got projects that are pilots or rough designs, and they want to see a photo of the finished document or the finished design. And I need to kind of, I think, launch that harder. So that's one of the things I'm going to start doing, is a lot more of that. Plus, I can work on the body paint, because if it's a member-only thing, I don't have to worry about the whole monetization thing. Oh, okay. So John is tuned in live. Thank you, sir. I was wondering. Somebody's here. I appreciate you helping out the channel too. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And I don't know what you guys think of the whole Blender idea or not. But it's, again, something I'm doing a lot more of, and that is paid work. So it is opening the door for additional revenue streams. You know, I think as photographers, we kind of get stuck in the thought of we only do photography with our camera, but we do bring it into Photoshop, or we do use Lightroom or Capture One. And that does open the door for us to be masters of, you know, visual imagery. A client can hire you to do something else that involves a visual thing, even if you're not using your Sony or your Canon or your Nikon or what have you. There are other ways to satisfy that visual requirement brought forth by clients. And that's been a big part of what I have grown this last year. And I want to share that with you. I want to share that concept with you. It may not be something for everybody. I know a lot of people that aren't technical are going to be rolling their eyes at that. And, you know, that's fine. It's not going to be for everybody. So I'm not going to get rid of the regular stuff we do in the channel. But I use it so often that I think that it's something I need to share, because it's part and parcel to what I do. Plus, you know, Capture One is not a complicated creature. You know, I'm starting to run out of ideas to talk about with this piece of software, because everything I want to talk about in depth is still broken, or they're moving on to other things. Like the new iPad interface they just launched. That's $4 or $9 a month. I don't know what it is. I don't own an iPad, and I have no interest in using it that way. But I do a lot of live tethering, which we haven't really talked about on this channel, and I do it quite often. So I think I'm going to actually go to the studio at some point and do a live shoot and show tethering, but I don't use an iPad or do anything like that. Steven says, Blender looks cool. It is a wonderful application, and I have done so much with it that has just, I mean, opened the doors financially, as well as, created a learning curve. It does have a pretty sizable learning curve. When COVID first started and I was trapped here at home, it's one of the things that I used to do. I used to do a lot of 3D stuff years ago. And it was one of those things where I say, you know what, this is a good time to dust off that skill set. And now I'm receiving a lot of commissions to do 3D, but again, 3D photography. So I'm not delivering a 3D file, I'm delivering a finished image. And if you don't know, to give you kind of a shock value of where this is coming from, the entire IKEA catalog hasn't contained a real photo for a good half a decade. Everything in the IKEA catalog is a rendered image. It's all done in 3D. They find it's a lot faster to do this, it's a lot more customizable and reproducible. So they can create the same kitchen set, add and change colors of things and so on without having to try and Photoshop color swap something, which always looks awkward, to do a much better job by rendering it. And that's kind of the direction that I think I need to take these images, especially because of the whole NFT thing as well. And I don't mean specifically because of NFT, but NFT is hinting, in my mind, that we are about to undergo a pretty big change as far as visual artists go, in that people will be consuming our photography differently in the next decade. And when we think about this, I love the statistic that the total of all human knowledge doubles every 11 years. That's from your telephones to your medical, space exploration, cars, you name it, everything doubles in human knowledge every 11 years. So if we look about a cell phone 11 years ago, like what it looks like now, it's at least twice as good as it was back then. Same with our computers, same with our iPads and what have you. The same with we visual artists, our cameras, our lenses, and how people consume our media. I was at a friend's house and he has a new Samsung, I think it's called a Samsung Frame, and it is a really flat TV that the box or the guts of the TV actually sit below, like on a shelf, and you just run a thin cord up to it, and it is a fantastic looking frame for a photo, and it changes and you can do that, but it is a TV as well. And I just imagine what that's going to look like in 11 years. I mean, holy mackerel, it's already really amazing, and they're like 6 or 8K, they're insane. I can see that being a big deal. Well, can you see how photography might evolve at the same time, where we're starting to add more animations, we're starting to add additional realism through these things, and then we get into augmented reality and virtual reality, where you're wearing those goggles. There in Costco now has those things for $200 or $250 for the newest Meta Quest 2. I don't own one, but I really want one. At some point, I'm going to grab one of those. And you think that our way of consuming photography is going to change. I think you're right. I think that the idea of an NFT, which is awkward to begin with, but imagine that you're walking through someone's photo gallery. You're walking down a hallway wearing these goggles, and you're looking at all the artwork they've purchased or made. Is a really great way to get your face up close to something. Instead of zooming in on it, you actually just walk closer to it and look at the detail. I think that's where we're going. And I think that this whole 3D thing is becoming a much bigger part of our lives than we may want to admit. And also, from a professional photographer standpoint, I think it opens the door for us to, again, be unique. Because if you're having trouble booking clients and you're having trouble building your business, it's probably because you're, say, stuck with natural light, for example, that now you blend into the masses. Everyone with a cell phone is now your competitor if they can compose as well or maybe better than you can. Yes, they may not have the lenses or the depth of field or the zoom reach that you might, but they have the ability to really compete with you in that market. So when you're adding studio lighting to things, even at a minor level, you are differentiating yourself from everyone else. Well, as we move forward, the ability to add these 3D items or these fantastic elements, places that don't exist and elements that don't exist into our photography, we are again differentiating ourselves from the masses. And I think that's where I am really kind of trying to go. I've been doing that for years, and I think that this channel, especially because Capture One it's a great program and I use it for a lot of stuff, but I don't edit in it. You know, a lot of people use like the healing tools and the clone stamping. They're just, to me, they're not as good as Photoshop, and they shouldn't be as good as Photoshop. Photoshop is a photo editor, and Capture One is a raw editor. And I think they dropped the ball on things like keywording and usability is horrific. And they're not addressing those things. They're trying to grow all these features and benefits to attract all the people that just, the mass people that use Lightroom. but I don't think they get it. I think that they're misunderstanding what their target market is, the professional. You guys use Capture One because you understand it's a better raw editor, and you probably don't use it to remove blemishes and things along that lines because it's kind of crappy. But what it doesn't do is keyword, which is the thing that it should be doing right. Its keywording is terrible. And all the other things I bitch about it for, like the fact that I have to go in here and have to uncheck all these boxes every time I have to send something to a client. This is so painful. Can you not put that in a folder for me? And then when I want to work on a new client, I have to go and uncheck. I think I probably check boxes in this specific interface about 400 times a day. Where they can't, you know what? Can I just alt click on something and it just changes all the other checkboxes? Is it that hard, Capture One? I've submitted that I don't even know how many years in a row, and they just won't do it. And then keywording is broken too. I'm going to make a whole video on how broken keywording is so that they can actually look at it. Because it's correct in the database inside of Capture One, but it doesn't export what's in the database. It exports it with commas between it and in the wrong order. So it's completely dumb. But they're not fixing it. So I've been actually looking at a couple other raw editors. As new ones keep coming out, I'll tell you the thing though Capture One has going for it that just cannot fix or cannot find better is this concept of the session. If you're using a catalog, you are missing the big point of why Capture One is amazing, is this session thing. It makes life so much easier on you. And the fact that I can, again, batch export stuff for clients all with one click. Again, another thing that a lot of the really great, like On One has a product that is looking very promising. But again, it's relying on a catalog mentality, which I'm not going to embrace because I don't need 75,000 images in one giant mass that I have to maybe decide every year to make a new catalog. And then I can only export one, I can only work on one image at a time and one export at a time. That's not going to work in a professional standpoint. But I think that if some of those other people understand where we're going and what we want as professionals, or people that are building our business around photography, then maybe they'll stand up and we can actually do something a little more interesting. I think Capture One has got the right idea, and it was the first there, but they're being slow on keeping the professionals satisfied. And I think there's a lot of people that are looking for alternatives now, and I'm hoping that they pay attention, because I do use the product every day, and I would just love it if one product did everything. But I've been relying on other editors for keywording now since Media Pro died, which was also owned by the same company. Anyway, I'm ranting now, but what I want to do is I want to show you guys how I got to this product, and obviously I'm not going to do that all in one sitting, because I want to work on the next one. I want to work on the one with the cables on the arms, and I thought we'd do that together as another live stream. It's going to probably be a couple of hours of work of me fiddling around with it. But I wanted to kind of establish where I want to go with this and get your feedback. What do you think? Do you just want to continue to see Capture One? Do you want to see more Photoshop? Or do you want to see Blender? Or do you want to see some of the other products? I use Substance Designer, which I'm actually going to do a PPA member library. They have a library of educational materials for members, and I'm going to be doing one for them. So if you want to know about Substance Designer is used for making surfaces, textures, and things along that lines that react a certain way, like velvet or wood floor or even fabrics, where you want to have them in a shot, but you don't have the ability to download that fabric. How do you make it? That's really its goal in life. Now, Blender does have some capabilities for making textures and so on, but it's rudimentary compared to Substance Designer, and that's what it does. So that's one of those other products I use quite a bit, because my product photography, they can't have something that looks computer generated. It must look like the actual product, because the product stuck on a barge in the middle of the ocean is no excuse for not getting the boxes printed, because that thing's got to be shipped to the store. And that's kind of the direction that I want to take this. And I thought I would ask for your feedback today and see what you thought a little more seriously. I mentioned it in a lot of my other podcasts, or podcast, you want to call this a podcast, a YouTube cast, video cast, on what you would like to see from the channel. So I thought I'd ask more formally today. So this is the direction I want to take it. But do I make it another channel? Is that going to frustrate the people that are here? I know I used to game on this channel a lot. I don't do that anymore, because I know that a lot of you be like, oh God, no. But I did create, I'm going to create, I think, well, I mean, I've created differently, but I use the channel Member Professional, I think, to start adding the Blender, the Blender assets into that once I start to get that established. So if you are a Blender person and you're interested in those things, I'm going to take that and kind of use it, because we've got a couple members in there now, and I really appreciate them, obviously donating to the channel every month to keep it interesting. I want to give them thanks for that and give them something back. So anyway, that's what I have for today. I just kind of wanted to talk about where I was going, this project I had, and kind of what I want to do with the channel, and why I'm going to be streaming a lot more frequently, but at odd times. We'll still try and maintain the Tuesday morning schedule when I'm in town, which should be for the next few weeks. But there's a lot of other live streaming I want to do. I know a lot of people are interested in the body paint that I do. I thought about doing some live streaming of that, but I obviously have to get the model to bless it, and that would be a member-only thing because obviously it's nudity, so it has to stay under lock and key inside of YouTube, which means we put it in the member-only area, and it's not even streamed to the public like this is streamed to the public, so there are people who are watching this that may not belong to the channel. That would be right to the members, and no one else would see it. But that's what I'm thinking. Let me know below in the comments what you think. You can also contact me on Twitter at se.weiler.com, or se.weiler, I should say, or on Instagram at the same thing. By the way, I have an Instagram just for my boudoir as well. I don't know if any of you guys are into that or not. Again, there's so many people on this channel that have different things that they like about my work. I want to make sure that I kind of keep everybody happy and satisfied. But if you are a boudoir photographer, which is about half of my revenue, actually, so I do boudoir, about 50% of my clients are boudoir. Then this is me here, knickers and knees. It's just, and it shows here that it is a branded account of what I do. But a lot of women come in here. I work a lot with breast cancer diagnosis, so it's not all just the happy things going on with it. Say, oh, Steve has a question here. Can you turn the one with the two legs so you're not pointed in the precise direction? Just to make it a bit more. Oh, these two here. Yeah, that would be a good idea, but I didn't do it back then. Unfortunately, these photos are already shot and done, and any attempt to move this shoe is probably going to end up with a believability issue, mostly because of depth of field. Because if I change the direction, then depth of field is going to change. You know, in reality, I learned a lot doing this, and yeah, I probably failed at it in the big picture of things. I probably failed at it, but I learned how to do it properly. So the next time, you're absolutely right. I need to change the positions of more things. I may even add other things in this scene yet, just to kind of make it look a little bit more interesting. But I have a lot of room up front here. I did crop this to 8x10 when I moved it back into Capture One. For exactly that reason. It was like, well, there's a whole lot of this here that I don't really need. So the final version is cropped tighter. But yeah, I could have done that. I was also thinking about actually hanging a price tag from one of them. So it looks like these are new, but they're out of the box. That's why they're lined up like that. Like maybe she's trying on new shoes. I'm not sure. I have to kind of sell the concept without her making her look like an amputee, which is the other challenge I've got. I don't want to offend somebody. So I say I don't mind offending people in real life because I'm not politically correct, but I don't want to offend a judge when they're trying to give my image a great rating, right? That's a bad time to pick a fight. So that's a little bit different topic of discussion. But yeah, I agree. There are some things I could have done differently, but I shot this in Oklahoma. Was it April 23rd? So I've shot it quite a while ago, and I've been traveling so much I haven't even had a chance to retouch any of these images from this set. That's how much I've been around. But for the next few weeks, I'll be here a lot. So I plan to do a lot more. Again, members only streaming, just because I'm going to be on. So I might as well just throw that out there. And that does include that streaming will include the supporters for the channel. So supporters for the channel don't really get any downloads. Like the sponsors and the professionals and the patrons do, but you are definitely helping the channel out. So live streams will go to everyone who's supporting the channel, even if it's that $1 a month person, because I really appreciate it. I mean, we don't make a lot of money from advertising on this thing, that's for sure, but I really like educating. I like teaching, so I speak a lot. I travel a lot for that. So this is kind of the same thing. This is a proxy for that when I'm not flying around. I get a chance to talk to you guys about stuff. So that's what I had for today. If you have any questions, comments, witticisms, criticisms, heresies, or fallacies, feel free to leave them below, and I'm sure we will get to them in the future. But everybody, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you all next time.